a member of, but obviously the expectations of the generality of the people of the country. I'm talking of people who are not necessarily MDC activists, but who are maybe MDC supporters, or we are even ZANU-PF supporters, because we have a lot of ZANU-PF supporters who vote for the MDC. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to blame any individual. This is the problem that I have with my brother here, Jacob, and his colleagues. They are so much attacking the personality of Morgan Tsvangirai. They talk about this, they talk about that, but who is perfect? Obed Gutu is not perfect. Jacob Mafume is not perfect. My good brother here is not perfect. And Nomfana Wangoyo is not perfect. And but honestly, if we are going to then say, because you've been humanizing, because you did this and that, and so go. Quite honestly, it's not good enough. So all I'm saying is we should focus on issues rather than the person.
That is politics. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Gutu. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please hand over the microphone to your colleague, but very quickly, I think other questions that we must interrogate out of what you've just said is, this issue of personalization of politics. And I'll cite one example where during the signing of the Constitution, one person walked in and people started chanting Gushungo, Gushungo. Someone else walked in and started chanting Save, Save. And that's a personal, if we're saying these are institutions, are these the personalities? Also, I may want you to answer this a bit later, Mr. Gutu, is the issue of, if you look at other democracies, where Gordon Brown campaigns or fails, he steps down and allows another candidate to try. When you've had the opportunity, you allow others. You have tried, you have failed, get behind the next person and support them. Again, those are questions we'll interrogate. But let me hand over to you, Mr. Mafume. Please go ahead.
Okay, I think let's be clear. We are equal to other people. This idea to think that if you are an African, you are not as sophisticated as a European, let's banish it immediately. Let's banish it immediately. We need to advise this generation of politicians that who are older but are still learning. I don't know how long they want to live for. Maybe 90, to learn the simple, basic tenets of democracy. You don't need to live long to understand a very simple concept as the question was put. You don't have to take long to understand that when somebody says, let's take for example in the liberation struggle, someone says, look, you have been shooting at the enemy. You are saying you are killing them, but they are still walking around. Can someone come forward to shoot that enemy? You don't turn your gun back to your own people to say, no, I'm the only one who can shoot the enemy. That person is not selling out. He's saying, I also want to come to the forefront to see if we can do things better. And that is how it should be. And that is how we expect it. Now, this is a promise to this generation. He is about 50 or 60. If now he does not want to be president, when our time comes, we are not going to wait for him to be 80 for us to want to be presidents. We are going to want to lead this country at an appropriate age and at an appropriate time, so that we have generational mandate. The Mandela moment for both Mugabe and Tsvangirai was at the end of the inclusive government. They should have both retired after they've given us a new constitution. And that would have been proper. Now you cannot continue ad infinitum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mafume.
You spoke about the two-term provision in constitutions, as if we have that provision in our constitution. We don't. Our constitution is very clear. A leader is elected at Congress, and we have adhered to that. We have followed that. The MDCT is the party, the political party that had a constitution that had that provision very clearly. And they sought not once, not twice, more than 3 times to change that in order to protect Morgan Tsvangirai. Now let's be clear. Morgan Tsvangirai has very clear, well-known dictatorial tendencies. And it's not only the Mafumes who are opposed to Morgan Tsvangirai's leadership skills. Nelson Chamisa, even my brother here, Obed Gutu, they are on record as saying Morgan Tsvangirai's leadership skills are questionable. WikiLeaks, it's clear, it's there. And we know, even to this day, privately, they continue to say Morgan Changa is not a good leader. Why are you constraining yourself? Come out in the open, be man enough, and challenge what is not democratic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. If I could have silence. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mazirisa, I must be, with all due respect, you did allude or touched on the question that I asked, and you said that in your own party, a leader is elected at Congress. Now, what we are saying is the national constitution says 2 terms. In ZANU-PF, why is it that you don't have these 2 terms? Why don't you have that? What is that? If at the national level we have it, and in your own party you don't, how will you then?
It appears you are proceeding from the mistaken belief that what is national should be at party level. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. It is up to a party to determine through its membership what provisions should be in their constitution.
Will you then be able to respect the national constitution if within yourselves you don't adhere or believe in what is the national constitution?
Of course, why not? Why would we not adhere to the national constitution? We are law-abiding citizens, and in fact, the fact that we brought the freedom that is in this country today demonstrates very clearly that we are determined to adhere to the rule of law. The constitution that you speak about.
Why is it though? Why is it that you don't have that? Why don't you have that provision of a limited number of terms?
Well, the constitution that you're talking about is a new constitution. It's only been in place, I think, a year and a half. And that came about at the insistence of ZANU-PF, by the way, because the MDCT, because of their dictatorial tendencies, were very much opposed to that particular clause.
Okay. All right, let's stop this discussion here. I know some people want to respond. I'll allow you to do so, but I've got another question I want to throw into the ring. And this is, again, to both formations here. We've seen, we've read of utterances, we've heard members and senior representatives of both the MDC and ZANU-PF making references to the fact that the current leaders are anointed or are chosen by God, that, reference to Cremora, things like that, Moses, Messiahs, and things like that. Is that a good precedent going forward where we are saying that this person is from God? Are we not all from God? Just a question that I would like to ask, because it's a phenomenon we've seen in both sides of the parties. Is it a good thing? Are we setting the right precedent if we're saying that this particular person is from God and no one else?
Well, I think it's factually correct to say, for example, that President Mugabe is from God. Is he not from God?
Are we not all from God?
No, but if you make that opinion, is it not factually correct that he's from God? The fact is, you must test whether it is factually correct when somebody says President Mugabe is from God. That is number one. Number two, you must distinguish opinion from constitutional provision. If somebody expresses a mere opinion and says, for example, that President Mugabe was chosen to rule this country forever, that must be distinguishable from what the Constitution says. We have a Constitution that is very clear about the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of association. So it's important to have a clear demarcation of those two things. Expression of personal opinion and what the Constitution actually says.
Fantastic.
There must be a distinction drawn really between, what a politician can say or do at a political rally and maybe before a forum like this one. And sometimes also when these issues get reported in the media, you have all sorts of distortions, with due respect. So I really have no problems with someone saying leaders are chosen or anointed by God. I don't see anything fundamentally wrong with that. But obviously there's a distinction between like saying you are just doing that boot-looking, is a popular term used by our newsmen here, or just emphasizing the point that, look, we are basically a very faith-based kind of society. Most of us, the majority of Zimbabweans either go to one church or another. I don't want to say we are a Christian nation as such, but I can safely say that we are largely a faith-based society. And when people say leaders are chosen by God, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that. But obviously when you then go to the extent of literally saying, equating them to Jesus Christ, like what some people have said in ZANU-PF, to say Mr. Mugabe he ranks on the same footing with Jesus Christ, then obviously that becomes an issue. But there's nothing wrong in saying a leader is chosen by God or is anointed.
Okay.
So there's a difference between bootlicking and just making reference to leaders being chosen and or anointed.
I understand my colleagues' desperation here. They are gasping for air because they are afraid of the headlines, which will say that they said their leaders are not from God or are not like God or are not like Jesus Christ. We will excuse you from answering this question as it was asked. You know, it is clear that we should stop running churches, running political parties like crusades, where political rallies are turned into praise and worship sessions, where the rally has no issues but speeches praising the leader and songs praising the leader. And the people go back hungry, no solution, no jobs, no better off than they were before they attended the rally. It is clear that when leaders, it is no excuse, it is irresponsible for whole lawyers, whole professionals, whole leaders to call villagers to come to a meeting simply to rally and sing about how good a leader is. You must talk to the issues. Zimbabwe is in an economic crisis. Zimbabwe is looking for jobs, and you've got a poor villager who walks for kilometers wanting to hear how tomorrow they are going to get their food, how tomorrow their child who is at school is going to get a job. And all they turn up to is a series of praise and worship from one town to the other. It's wrong and must be stopped.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mafume.
I have heard, I have to go back to what I said earlier on. We have a crisis here. We have a generational crisis, which was also called a succession crisis. The generational crisis we have is that my age group went to the struggle, right, to get independence. But I don't think we have acquitted ourselves in the new revolution, economic revolution. We don't have the means, the mindsets. It's time for your generation to take over. Okay? It's very important. Now, it's very clear to me that the discourse around the MDC is very much the same as it is in ZANU-PF. And would have hoped, and maybe it's not too late, that the discourse should be changed. It's how to change the politics. Yes, to a new 21st century. I don't know what it is. I'm outdated. We did our part. We're finished. Even if others don't admit it. I don't believe that what we have, neither ZANU-PF nor MDC, as country constituted, can take us forward. We need a new discourse of politics. We need a generational change urgently. One of the saddest things I notice, sitting as I do here, is the extent to which MDC was supposed to be made up of younger people like these people on my left. But they're doing exactly the same as was done in the 60s. Yes, let's be very serious, and it's very sad. The specter of ethnic politics is running through the current discourse in MDC. Sadly so. Even the media is divided ethnically. And I'm saying these are young boys. How old is Shamisa? 35? He speaks like a guy in the 60s. What's going on? Huh? It's very sad. I'm very disappointed. So what we want basically from you is generational change the discourse of politics. You can do it. You're able to do it. But you need to change your mindset. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Maziwisa, let me come back to you. Some years back, I think about 10 years ago, there was a very topical issue, and everyone knew about it, where the Cholocho Declaration was made, and that was a clear response to issues to do with succession and succession within the party. 10 years on, that has still not happened. Are we likely to see this resolved at the next elective Congress?
Yeah. This is exactly the same thing that the MDCT has been saying over the last few days. That because there are certain things that happened in the past in ZANU-PF, so what they are doing is perfectly understandable. Let me talk about the so-called Cholocho Declaration. We do not have problems with people expressing different opinions in ZANU-PF. People can gather wherever they want to discuss whatever they want. And the thing with ZANU-PF is, how do you handle those differences in opinion? And I think if you look at our record, we have people, at times we have very sharp differences in the party, but we've never imploded as a party. We value unity. If you look at our founding values, and that is what makes us distinguishable from other political parties, we have unity, we have peace, we have development in ZANU-PF. And I think that is why we have remained a united party. Unity means everything to us as far as ZANU-PF is concerned. Succession being handled at the next Congress, look, that is for the people's, the members of ZANU-PF to determine, and that is going to be determined by the way people are going to vote at the next Congress. It's not for people to speculate on. People are entitled, in terms of the constitution of the party, to choose leaders of their choice. I think President Mugabe has been saying that quite consistently over the last few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now a question to the two MDCs. If we're saying that leadership is a collective, and if you're practicing internal democracy, if the argument is Morgan Tsvangirai has failed to win an election, he has done so as part of a party machinery, has done so as part of a leadership of a party. Why single out an individual? Why single out and say him? And the leaders who have formed the MDC team were also part of that same executive that failed to win the election. So if there's internal democracy, why not have a renewal of all these structures?
Thank you very much, Comrade Moderator. That question has made my evening. This is the main problem, really, that I have with Elton Mangoma and others. To say it's so much, it's Morgan Tsvangirai specific. But here I talked about, the 4 minutes you gave me, about the National Standing Committee, which is composed of 13 elected members, all of whom are elected at a party congress. So if we're going to talk about democracy and collective leadership and collective responsibility, you say, Morgan Tsvangirai, we as the leadership have failed. So we should stand aside. Not to say, Morgan Tsvangirai, stand aside. We'll get somebody, we'll give you 3 million bucks. You go to Humanikwa village and we'll get somebody. We're going to have a president for hire. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is anything but democracy. That is anything but constitutionalism. So if you are a genuine Democrat who preaches who does what they preach, you should simply say, as a collective leadership, the 13 of us, 13 members of the National Standing Committee, inclusive of Mangoma himself, Mangoma should have been the first person to resign.
Mr. Gutu,
before he called on
let me ask you
to resign.
Let me ask you this very quickly before I hand over to Mr. Mafume.
Yes.
You have just said that there's a lot of personalization, yet you keep making reference to Mangoma, to BT. Yet, if we are to go by media reports, we see there are hundreds of people who seem to say they no longer are happy with the leadership. So why single out when you are saying don't personalize to the other people?
I think in terms of numbers, look, it's so obvious where the numbers are. And I'm not here to brag on behalf of my party leader. Mm-hmm. I think the facts speak for themselves. As a lawyer,
I'm saying the personalization.
Res ipsa locita, the facts are there. Mm-hmm. The numbers are with Morgan Dianese. Fantastic.
With all due respect, the question I'm making is not an issue of who has the numbers and all that, but I'm saying you are singling out individuals and not saying that, not once have I heard you say that some people in the party don't want, people within the party, indicating that it's not an individual. Okay. It's clearly, they clearly have people who are, yeah.
Thank you very much. Why I'm singling out, I mean, it's within the public domain that the face of this so-called leadership renewal has been Elton Mangoma. It is also in the public domain now that Elton Mangoma was funding for one Tendai BT. This is a fact. So I have but to mention their names. I have nothing against them. If anything, I've known Tendai for close to 3 decades. I have nothing against him as a person. He's one of the country's top lawyers. He knows it. I mean, I respect him, and I think he respects me too. It's nothing personal. It's just a question of saying he's just doing it the wrong way.
I think we need, I appreciate our facilitator here. who is asking us to speak like the generation that we are in. What we have said is that the key values of the movement for democratic change are captured in the words democratic change. Democratic change with emphasis. When we set out, we never sought to give title deeds to any position. We never sought to give title deeds to one particular person. And what we are saying is that this, if you look at the movement for democratic change, a number of these positions are being held by people who were not in those positions. Those positions have changed over the times, and they were going to change again at this Congress. The only problem people have is that there were already people who were lined up to challenge the SG. There were already people who were lined up to become organizers. The only thing was that people were scared of challenging the...
Let us give Mr. Mafume his... Ladies and gentlemen, if we could... Thank you.
People must understand...
Please let us respect the speakers up here. Quiet.
People must then understand that it is the norm for presidential candidates to be challenged. It is the norm for other people to want to be a president, and for other people in that particular party to want to succeed to a senior position in that party. You can't say you have the most senior position. When everything is going good, you want to take the glory for the good. When everything is going bad, you then say it's a collective responsibility. You can't do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mafume. Thank you to our audience. Dr. Mandazi, you've mentioned that it is now time for this generation to take over. But I mean, practically, do they have the capacity? Will they be allowed to be able to take up that position? Will the space be created for them to be able to take over?
Yes, I think there is room for that. It's sad. The polarization in this room is tremendous. It's very sad, that we have such polarization within an opposition movement, which is a very important movement, as I said at the outset. And I really hope that such meetings as we're having, such dialogue, would help mend fences. We cannot afford this polarization. We need to focus on the way forward. And it doesn't help us by shooting at each other. And my focus is more national. As I said earlier on, we need a new discourse. How do you start to answer your question? Let's get the right constitutions in our parties. Psychology dodged the issue. The ZANU-PF constitution is very archaic. Go back to Chimoyo, actually, right? Yes, it is. And if you look at the issue of succession in the party, it's not even stated. There's no clear definition at all. And regrettably, it's clearer in the national constitution, although few know about it. Section 101 of the new constitution says very clearly how it's done. But in the party, there isn't. It appears to me that is replicated in MDC itself. And it's interesting that in the last 2 days, we have had the one side saying that they are adhering to the constitution, the other one saying they're adhering to the constitution, others saying that you are suspended, others saying you are expelled. The words are very different legally. And MDC is full of lawyers, but I'm amazed at the level of confusion therein. So I think basically, if you want to build a foundation for the future, is to give some regard to the constitutions that govern our organizations, whether it's a football club or a political party. I don't think we've given enough regard to that. Secondly, more important, which is the point you are raising, moderator, can we transcend this personalization of politics? This adulation.